The staff members were talking amongst themselves and laughing at Kendrick Davis, a black man who had come to this renowned five-star restaurant. But if only they had known the truth. If you believe everyone should be treated equally, make sure to comment down below where you are watching from. It was a rainy evening in New York City. For those who knew where to go, it was the perfect night to enjoy an exquisite meal at one of the city's most elite dining establishments, La Nouvelle Cuisine. Located in the heart of Manhattan, this five-star restaurant was known for its impeccable service, world-class chefs, and a clientele that included everyone from celebrities to business tycoons. Kendrick Davis had heard about La Nouvelle Cuisine for years. As an entrepreneur with a passion for fine dining, Kendrick had always dreamed of experiencing the culinary marvels that the restaurant promised. But unlike most guests, Kendrick wasn't just any customer. He was the owner. At 38 years old, Kendrick had built his empire from the ground up, overcoming obstacles and setbacks that would have stopped many in their tracks. He was the successful owner of several high-end businesses, including a chain of gourmet coffee shops and a luxury fashion line. La Nouvelle Cuisine was his latest acquisition, a crown jewel in his growing empire. But tonight, he was about to experience something shocking within his own establishment. Kendrick arrived at La Nouvelle Cuisine just after 7 p.m., dressed impeccably in a tailored black suit, his dark skin glowing against the sleek white shirt he wore beneath. He exuded confidence as he approached the hostess stand, a slight smile on his face. He had made a reservation under a different name, wanting to experience the restaurant as any guest would. What he didn't expect, however, was the cold reception he received from the hostess. "Good evening, sir. Do you have a reservation?" the young woman behind the stand asked, her voice polite but with a tone of detachment. Kendrick noticed how she barely looked at him as she spoke. "Yes, I do. Kendrick Davis for 7 p.m., he replied, offering a calm smile. The hostess glanced down at her computer, scanning the screen for a moment. "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't see a reservation under that name," she said, her eyes now flickering up to him with a slightly confused expression. Kendrick felt a pang of unease. He pulled out his phone and showed her the confirmation email. "Here it is. Kendrick Davis. I made the reservation earlier this week," he explained. The hostess hesitated, her gaze darting to the maitre d' who stood nearby, a tall man dressed in an impeccable black tuxedo. He observed the situation with a raised eyebrow, his arms crossed over his chest. "I'm sorry for the confusion, Mr. Davis," the hostess said finally, her voice strained. "Please follow me." Kendrick didn't have time to process the strange encounter before the hostess led him through the restaurant. As they passed through the dining area, Kendrick noticed the hushed whispers of the other diners, their eyes following him as he walked by. He ignored them, keeping his gaze forward. But the whispers grew louder as they approached a corner booth near the back of the restaurant. "Here you are, sir," the hostess said curtly as she pulled out the chair for him to sit. "I hope you enjoy your meal," she added, before quickly turning away without another word. Kendrick sat down, trying to shake off the odd sensation that something was wrong. He took in the surroundings, the opulent decor, the gleaming glassware, the carefully arranged silverware. Everything screamed exclusivity, but in that moment he felt like an outsider. The waitstaff moved around him, but none seemed to make eye contact. No one came to offer a drink, a menu, or even a friendly greeting. It was as though he had been forgotten. Minutes passed, and Kendrick couldn't shake the feeling of being invisible. He looked around the room, noticing how the staff was attentive to the other guests, many of whom appeared to be wealthy, white patrons. He didn't want to jump to conclusions, but it was becoming hard to ignore the uncomfortable atmosphere surrounding him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a waiter approached the table. He was a young man, his uniform pristine, but his face was cold, his movements stiff. "Can I get you anything to start, sir?" the waiter asked, his eyes flickering quickly to the side, as if avoiding Kendrick's gaze. Kendrick raised an eyebrow. "A drink, please," he said, his tone calm, but with an undercurrent of irritation. "A glass of your best red wine." The waiter nodded, but Kendrick noticed how he hesitated before leaving the table. The moment he walked away, Kendrick felt a wave of discomfort wash over him. This wasn't normal. He had been to the finest restaurants around the world, and never had he been treated like this, ignored, avoided, and dismissed. Minutes passed, and still no wine. Then another staff member passed by, an older man with graying hair, the sommelier. He looked at Kendrick for a moment, then at the empty table before turning his gaze away and walking briskly in the opposite direction. Kendrick's patience was wearing thin. The moment the sommelier left, Kendrick stood up, his calm facade cracking just slightly. He walked toward the maitre d', who was standing by the kitchen door. "Excuse me," Kendrick said, his voice steady but firm. "Can I speak to you for a moment?" The maitre d' turned to face him, his posture stiffening. "Yes, how may I help you, sir?" "I've been sitting at this table for over 20 minutes. I've been ignored, avoided, and treated like I'm invisible," Kendrick said. "Something's wrong here?" Before the maitre d' could respond, the sommelier rushed over, his face pale. "Wait, are you Kendrick Davis?" Kendrick's brow furrowed. "Yes." The sommelier's face turned pale. "Sir, I had no idea you were the owner." Kendrick's expression darkened. "So now you care? Now that you know who I am?" At that moment, the restaurant's general manager approached, her face tight with concern. "Mr. Davis, I am so sorry. There is no excuse for this." Kendrick took a deep breath before speaking. "You're right. There's no excuse. And there are consequences. You," he said, turning to the maitre d', "are fired. And you," he gestured to the hostess and the waiter, as well. The staff froze in shock. "Sir, please." The maitre d' started, but Kendrick held up a hand. "I don't tolerate disrespect in my establishments. Not to me, not to anyone." He turned to the general manager. "Make sure we hire people who reflect the values of this restaurant. This will never happen again." With that, Kendrick turned and walked out, knowing that sometimes the hardest battles are the ones that create real change.